This is Save Me a Seat, Monday. We are on Chapter 3. Told from the perspective of Ravi. Mrs. Beam tells us we are going to play some games called Icebreakers. I can already tell that school in America is going to be easy for me. At Vidya Mandir, we never played games during class. On my first day of 4th grade, my teacher, Mrs. Aaron, gave us a test. The first game Mrs. Beam teaches us is called Fruit Salad. I am on the team called Bananas, and Dylan is on the apples. Another game is called Wink Murder. In this game, one person is the murderer, and he or she has to knock people out by winking at them. I find this game a bit confusing, because even when Dylan is not the one chosen to be the murderer, he still winks at me. The last game we play is called Venn Friends. For this game, Mrs. Beam assigns us partners. I hope that she will put me with Dylan Samreen. But instead, my partner is a pale, skinny girl called Emily Mooney. You'll have a few minutes to interview each other, Mrs. Beam explains. Find out as much as you can about your partner. For instance, what kind of music does he or she like? What is his or her favorite food or sport? When you've finished your interviews, you'll create a Venn diagram showing all the things you have in common. What the heck? Says a red-haired boy with freckles. He doesn't know what a Venn diagram is, so Mrs. Beam has to explain it. At Vidya Mandir, we learned how to make Venn diagrams in 3rd grade. Each of you must draw a circle and fill it with a list of things that your partner enjoys, Mrs. Beam says. Then you and your partner will draw 2 overlapping circles. Where the circles intersect, you'll make a list of all the things you've discovered you have in common. At first, I think this will be an easy game for me, but every time I try to ask Emily Mooney a question, she giggles and says, "What?" Then when I try to answer her questions, she does the same thing. Appa says that someday I will be interested in girls, but that day has definitely not come yet. When Mrs. Beam calls this time, the only thing Emily Mooney and I have found to place in the intersection of our diagram is that we are both in room 506, and that was my idea. I'm glad when Mrs. Beam tells us it's time to get ready for lunch. At Vidya Mandir, our lunch period began at 1 o'clock. 5th graders at Albert Einstein Elementary School eat lunch at 11:30 in the morning. When I get to the lunchroom, the first thing I do is look for Dylan Samreen. In India, my best friend Pramod and I always ate lunch together. Afterwards, we'd play cricket in the field behind the school. I spot Dylan standing in the queue waiting to buy his lunch. They are serving something I have never heard of before, called chicken fingers. Most of the tables are filling up quickly, but I spot an empty table on the opposite side of the lunchroom and sit down. While I wait for Dylan to join me, I carefully lay out the cloth napkin that my mother packed for me, neatly folded with a spoon tucked into it. I'm not feeling very hungry, but Amma will be upset if I don't eat the lunch she has made me. "Upuma made with pure desi ghee," she said as she stirred the pot this morning. "Semolina will give you plenty of energy for your first day of school, Ravi." "Too lumpy," Parima criticized, looking over my mother's shoulder as she cooked. I am just getting ready to open my stainless steel tiffin box when Dylan Samreen walks by carrying his tray. I caught a glimpse of his underwear earlier in class. There are red dots on it. I think about my own underwear, clean white Hanes from Kohl's that my mother insists on ironing. There's no way I would ever let my underwear hang out like that, whatever that kind of underwear is called. I thought Dylan and I would eat lunch together today, but instead he goes and sits down at a table in the corner by the window with some of the other boys. I had been looking forward to having a good laugh with him about Mrs. Beam, suggesting that I needed special help. But it's okay. I'm not worried. I'm sure that Dylan and I are going to be friends. He's been smiling and winking at me all morning. A big white kid with yellow hair and a wrinkled shirt comes and puts his tray down at the other end of my table. He doesn't say hello to me, just sits down on the bench. He's so big the table shakes and my tiffin box jumps. I recognize him as the guy who sits behind me in class, but I don't remember his name. He doesn't seem very friendly. He picks up his fork and starts shoving food into his mouth and doesn't stop eating until his plate is clean. I think maybe he forgot to eat breakfast. And what's that he's got in his ears? I'm feeling a little hungry now, too. I spread the napkin on my lap and bend down, sniffing at the upuma. Parima was wrong. It's perfect, not lumpy at all. So I gobble it down quickly. I need to wash my hands and rinse my mouth, but for some reason, there isn't any sink in the lunchroom. I look at my watch. I still have 10 minutes left until the bell rings, so I tuck the spoon back into the napkin, place it in my tiffin box, and buckle the lid. As I'm on my way out of the lunchroom to wash up in the boys' bathroom, a roar of laughter comes from the table in the corner by the window. Dylan Samring must have made a good joke because everyone is slapping him on the back and treating him like he's a hero. I smile to myself. I know exactly how it feels to be that guy. I know something else too. Tomorrow I will not be eating my lunch alone. I will be sitting at that table in the corner by the window, right next to Dylan Samring.